Oh my god. Hi guys! In this video I'm going to be altering my clothes with absolutely no experience. I'm going to be using a sewing machine and I have absolutely no experience using one. So I have 4 pieces of clothing that I've literally just been keeping in my wardrobe for the longest time because they need altering. But I didn't want to get rid of them. But at the same time, I haven't owned a sewing machine until the start of lockdown, which was basically when I started filming this. Here we go! So I made sure the first thing that I worked on was something that I really didn't mind destroying because, like I said, I really had no clue what I was doing. I only bought a sewing machine because everybody else was sewing on YouTube and, you know, lockdown, had nothing to do. I mean, kind of still is lockdown. But yeah, I had originally bought this slip dress for a 1920s costume. Needless to say, I did not end up wearing it as it really was quite terrible. My plan for this dress was to try and take the skirt up a little bit. I kind of just felt like it was at an awkward length. I mean, looking back, I probably should have just left it, but oh well. Altering this piece definitely taught me a few things. The stretch of the fabric was really strange, like the front and the back didn't match. I mean, I only paid a £5 for it, so I didn't really mind that much, but it definitely made sewing really awkward. I really couldn't have done myself more dirty by setting this dress as my first alteration because it really was a struggle. But at least I've learned a few things from it. The first thing that I did with this dress was I set a pin where I thought I wanted the dress to end. Again, looking back, I should have just pinned the whole of the bottom of the dress up to see how long I wanted it and tried it on. I think this is probably why it ended up so short. Then I took a ruler and I measured how much fabric I was taking off and I went around the whole dress and marked this measurement. I think this was an okay technique, but I think I should have taken off a little less because I didn't even include seam allowance, and I also think using a proper sewing ruler thingy with the grid would probably have been a lot better, but I didn't have one, so you know, this worked. Oh, and I also should have ironed it. Once I had made my lovely line across the fabric, you can see how wonky it is. I don't know why I didn't iron it. No, actually I do. I was being lazy. But I then decided to cut along the line, and this was probably something else that I really regretted doing afterwards. I definitely learnt my lesson after this because I don't cut my clothes until I have finished sewing them. Just because I am a beginner, I don't know what I'm doing, and I don't want to ruin my clothes. But to be fair to myself, I did need to cut this in order to use my hemming foot that I end up using for this. So I guess I had to cut it. But still now, I just have excess fabric on all of my clothes because I'm like, I don't want to cut it. Just because I always think I can go back and fix it and make it look a little bit better. Like, it really will make the difference. So this was the foot that I used to hem my dress, and honestly, it was such a pain to get my head around. I hadn't even properly used a normal sewing foot, and so this was just such a pain. I made sure to test out sewing on that scrap piece of fabric I just cut out, and oh my god, this was so important. I had to adjust so many settings just to get this fabric to stitch properly, and it was just a pain. But I eventually was happy with all of my settings and my ability to be able to use this foot, and so I began to work on the actual dress. I had watched a few sewing videos before I'd bought the machine. I mean, I hadn't really paid attention, but I did know that one thing that you shouldn't do when you're sewing is stretch the fabric. So, I mean, I thought I wasn't, but I guess I did, and you will see in the end why. So yeah, that's just another thing to be aware of. Do not stretch the fabric, otherwise it will just go wrong. I took so long to stitch this because I just didn't trust myself with this foot. It was really confusing. I think I have a better understanding of it now. I think I've used it 1 or 2 more times, but it's just a weird one. The actual hem itself went pretty well. I had done so many failed attempts, so I was really happy with the way that it looked when it wasn't being worn. But unfortunately my final result was a little less than flattering. I had taken off way too much fabric and I had so many ripples in the hem because I think that's where I stretched the fabric, even though I don't even think I did. But anyway, we won't get into that. I definitely learned a lot from this first
alteration, and so I really recommend altering something that you really don't mind destroying before you start on anything you actually care about, because I think it just helps to get your head around sewing and everything and how it works and the fabric and the settings, and I just think it's important to just try it out first. But anyway, on to my next alteration. I had recently just bought this blue skirt and I really liked it, but it was just a little bit too low-waisted for me. So I wanted to take in the waist because it just didn't fit me right there. Initially, I had planned to take in both sides to make sure it looked even, but that would mean messing around with the zip, and I'm a beginner! Since the seams on this skirt looked a little complicated, I made sure to take pictures of them before I pulled it apart so that I could put it back together properly. And these pictures did actually come in helpful, so top tip, take pictures. I had put in 2 safety pins where I wanted to take in the skirt, and yet again, I didn't properly pin it or try it on, so I just ended up sewing one side down with my initial pin placement without even trying it on, and I came to the realization that after sewing just one side down, it fit me how I wanted it to. Yet again, I didn't do the measurements right, but when I looked in the mirror, I didn't think that the skirt looked wonky, so I just decided to keep it one side sewn, and that also meant that I didn't need to move the zip, which was a relief. Because I didn't properly take the skirt in, I decided not to cut off the excess fabric, as I do plan on eventually moving the zip. Maybe. Having this extra fabric did make my seams a little bulky, but it was nothing too noticeable, so I didn't really mind.
So I have these pants that I need to fix. As you can see, they are very big. The elastic is broken inside of it, so I do need to kind of find a way to get in and fix this. I really don't want to have to take off the waistband, but that is the only way that I would be able to get into it to keep all of the seams the right way. So I don't know, I might end up flipping some of the seams the wrong way, and if I end up having to take the waistband off this, it will be very easy to see where I've gone wrong on the outside. If I do go wrong. I don't plan on going wrong. I think I'm going to seam rip this part open, get the elastic, sew the elastic together again, and then stitch this bit closed. So you will see the seam on the inside, but obviously you won't see the inside, so it really just be an issue for me. I also need to take these up because these were really long when I got them. I do have some like iron-on hemming thing that keeps it together, but as you can see, it's literally all falling apart. I don't really want to have to cut these because I just don't think I'll get it right. I do need to also measure these because I don't think I've got both legs the same height exactly. So if I'm sewing them, I obviously want to make sure that I get it right. So I need to hem the bottoms and sort out the waistband. I hope you like my outfit, by the way. It's really cold.
So I began seam ripping the inner side of the waistband so that I would be able to gather the elastic to sew it back together. And once I had both ends of the elastic, I pinned them both together with a safety pin and sewed it down quite a few times. After I fixed the elastic, I then needed to stitch up the inner side of the hem that I'd opened up. I should have really just hand stitched this because I kept missing fabric, and I ended up having a bunch of problems and nearly broke my machine a few times, which was a tad stressful.
So now we have one really ugly seam on the side, but it's on the inside, so it shouldn't be too noticeable. But yeah, the waist is back on.
Okay, so I ended up trying to sew down the hem of one of the legs of my pants off camera because it had run out of battery, and it ended up just going so badly. I had such a hard time with these pants. I don't think I recorded that much just because I was so stressed. I do have another pair of pants that I end up taking up in case you're interested in how I did it, but this pair of pants was just not working for me, so I just really didn't capture much, but I will do my best to explain what happened. So I ended up taking a break to make sushi because I was just so stressed and I wanted to make myself feel better, you know? And since I didn't record, I guess I'll just tell you what I did over the top of this. So I ended up just seam ripping the entire hem so that I could start again because the first time was just a massive failure. The fabric had stretched while sewing and the stitches were just too close together. I tested sewing on the bottom of the pants where I would eventually be cutting it off and adjusted my machine settings until my stitches looked somewhat decent. I then went and stitched the hem again using the new stitch settings, and luckily it ended up working. I mean, it wasn't the cleanest stitch in the world, but it did the job without looking tragic and puckering, so I was happy. I think I had the stitch speed set too high because there were a couple of skip stitches, but other than that, it worked.
You know what? To be fair, it's not even bad. Here are the pants that I need to take in. As you can see, they're like really wide. I don't know if I want them this wide. This is what they look like. So I'm gonna try and see how much of these I need to take off. I really want to make sure I get it symmetrical. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get a pair of my wide leg pants that are like exactly like this and just kind of compare it to it. So I don't know whether you can tell, but I have pinned it. Oh, I'm really careful because I've pinned them all facing upright, so all the pins are on the inside stabbing me, but I've pinned it and I think I prefer it like this. I mean, it's still really wide, but it's just not as wide as it was, and I think it might look nice. I'm gonna sew up the sides, but I'm not gonna cut the fabric off because I don't know, what if I change my mind, you know? Okay, so next day again, and I have pinned down the bottoms of my pants. This side is 10 centimeters and this side is at 9 centimeters. I think I'm gonna go for the 9 centimeter one just because they're very similar. So I'm gonna go ahead and actually properly measure this and mark the fabric, and then I'm gonna work on the hem. So wish me luck.
So I actually tried the pants on again after I pinned everything in place, and I was happy with where they ended, so I got to work sewing the hem. This was probably the easiest hem ever because the fabric was very forgiving and I just didn't really have any issues sewing it. I just ironed both the seams down and I'm actually pretty happy with the way that it's gone. There are two issues with it. So on the inside where I've taken it in, I didn't want to commit to cutting that just yet just because I wasn't 100% still. And so sewing the hem on top of that has kind of caused this little bump, and also on the other side. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with the way that it fits. I don't know if this is like the right length to have it at, but I think it will do for now. I do need to give the pants an iron all over, but I'm so impressed. So that's the end of this video. Even though I had no idea what I was doing and I ran into quite a lot of issues, I'm still happy with how the end results turned out for most of them. Obviously that slip dress, I don't know what to do with that now. If you're an experienced sewer and you've been watching this video cringing, please let me know what I'm doing wrong. If you have any tips, please let me know. But anyway, I'm gonna go now, so bye!